think that it's a lot less about travel and a lot more about the freedom to say, hey, I'd like to go visit my family. Like I stay with my family a month out of the year, and I could have never done that whenever I lived in Chicago because I worked at a corporate job. I couldn't have gotten a month of vacation. And if I did, as much as I love seeing my family, I wouldn't have spent my vacation time visiting them. I would have been traveling. So I actually see my family more. And yes, it's concentrated. I don't see them every weekend or something, but I spend more time with them over the course of a year than I would have before. So you can kind of stretch those freedoms, see what you can find. It doesn't have to be exotic at all.
I like that thought. And you're right. I cannot spend a month with my mom as much as I'd like to. That quality of time that you must have with a month, because it's not like, oh, we got to do this, we got to wrap these presents, we got to go see everybody else. You've got time and probably more energy.
You can't say Dr. Mo ain't tell ya that fear magnifies the consequences of failure. What are you scared of? Why are you afraid? I'd rather live like I'm dying than live to die. Any day, my heart is pure, my soul is safe.
Welcome to Perpetual Motion, a podcast for those who share my passion for professional development. I'm your host, Dr. Mo Anderson, and my focus is improving personal finance, communication, relationships, and personal growth. My guest today is Kayla Ihrig, an American who bought a one-way ticket out of the United States in 2017 and has spent most of her time abroad, living an exciting nomadic life that takes her to countries like Portugal and Croatia, where she is today. You might wonder why she ditched the traditional 9-to-5 office life and 30-year home mortgage. Well, like many of us, she had the gnawing feeling that life was passing her by and making it till the weekend was a less than ideal daily goal. So she found work online, and after a bit of trial and error, today she has an online business that supports her family, y'all. Part of that business is teaching others how to be a digital nomad, which also happens to be the name of her new book. If you're ready to travel the world, minimize your material possessions, that clutter, that junk we all have, and turn your side gig into a career, this is the episode for you, friend. Kayla, welcome.
Thanks for having me, Mo.
I am excited. You are in Croatia right now, right?
I am. Yep. The sun is out. The Mediterranean is blue. It's beautiful.
Oh, that is so exciting. It's on my bucket list. You've inspired me already. So let's get after it. You told me that you are traveling the world with 2 backpacks and your computer. At what point did you realize you had too much stuff and not enough freedom?
I was thinking a lot about what my, best case scenario life was like. This was back in 2016, whenever I had an apartment, I was living in Chicago, had a lot of stuff. And I mean, maybe a normal amount of stuff, but it felt like so much. I thought, my dream world would be me traveling all the time. And I knew I can't do that with this. So I identified that all of my belongings were an obstacle to the life that I would have preferred to be living.
Mm. That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense. And it resonates with me. I really, during 2020, during that period, when I was basically in my office, in my kitchen, in my bedroom, I was like, okay, I've worn 3 pair of leggings for a year. I'm serious. When I got ready to start wearing shoes again to go out and about, the heels were falling off. The soles of the shoes were falling off. And I remember the cobbler, the guy who repairs my shoes, he was like, this happened to everybody. Shoes have to be worn. You can't have stuff just sitting around. And I think that includes people. We shouldn't just be sitting around either. So, you had a light bulb moment and you went for it into digital nomadism, which we'll talk more about. You shared with me earlier that this is not even a new phenomenon. We might have a new term for it, but what's the history of this lifestyle? And let me preface that with, would you define digital nomadism? Because I'm assuming people know what that term means, but perhaps they don't.
Sure. Anyone who works online and has the freedom to, work from home or from the library or from Croatia, you could be considered a digital nomad. And I know that not everyone kind of identifies with that term. A lot of people work from home for their families because it's nicer to have that flexibility.
Mhm.
But those people who use remote work to travel, those are the people who normally identify with the term. And you nailed it whenever you talked about it not being new. It seems like it's new because the technology, you think, gosh, it would have been so inconvenient to do this 20 years ago, but
Yes.
there were people doing it 20 years ago and 40 years ago. The first digital nomad, I found him and interviewed him in my book. His name's Stephen K. Roberts, and he set out in 1983 with the
Oh
first
my.
really portable computer. And he called himself a tech nomad. That was the first kind of iteration of the term. And the movement has only grown and picked up momentum, and it's actually fascinating how many people have done this. Because of the length, I
Mhm.
found another digital nomad from the 90s. His name's Rob Palmer. I interviewed him as well, and he lived this lifestyle with his kids in the 90s. And now one of his children lives this lifestyle with his daughter. So that is the
Wow.
second generation of digital. And she's like 2 or 3, but she's the second generation of kids growing up watching their parents make a living mobily. It's so cool.
It is cool. And those little ones first of all, we got to talk about the advent of technology, because I remember getting the first Macintosh computer, and it was, square like a little refrigerator or cooler or something. A dial-up modem. I'm an early adopter, but it took forever to come on. And I can't even imagine traveling with that. The thought never would have occurred to me. But now I just snap up my tablet or my PC, and we're on the road anywhere. Even on the plane now, they're letting you connect to Wi-Fi. So it makes a lot of sense for now. We are really just tethering ourselves to home when we don't have to. We really don't
Yeah.
have to. So I gotta open my mind to that, because I work remote, and I don't know why I'm just at home all the time. I could be at a coffee shop. I could be anywhere. You said that you talked about that in your book. Do they also talk about the challenges and the equipment or the changes?
Yeah, they shared their equipment. So Steven in the 80s, he used the first radio, I think it was called Radio Shack 1000, I think is what it was called. And instead of you having Wi-Fi, he used something called an acoustic coupler. So he would
Oh.
put money into a payphone and then take the receiver off and then plug an acoustic coupler, which was suction cups, onto the payphone and send his articles that way. And then fast forward to the 90s, Rob
Mhm.
Palmer, who I spoke to, he had a big computer in his RV, and he would drive up to people's homes with all of it, 4 kids and his wife in the car, in the RV.
Love
And he
it.
would knock on the door and ask them, do you have the internet? And can I pay you to use it for a little bit? And if they
Oh my.
said yes, then they would string their cord out the door of their house and through the window of his RV, and he would plug into the dial-up internet. And if you were alive in the time of dial-up internet, that sound still. Like, that is in my head
Yes.
forever.
I remember. Yes, I remember
It's
that
such a happy sound. The sound of going on the internet. Oh, it's and then flash forward to the 2000s. I interviewed a digital nomad and shared their story in the book from every decade. So 80s,
Oh.
90s, 2000s. So that's 5 decades of stories. And then in the early 2000s, there were internet cafes where you had to pay money to go to a cafe and
I
use the
remember
internet
that.
there.
Yes.
Yeah, and now we get annoyed if the Wi-Fi is a little slow in our Netflix buffers. I'm the worst. Oh, I'm the biggest culprit of that. But it's just funny, and no one complains about it. All the people I interviewed at these stages, I asked them, were you frustrated with the technology? And they all said, no, it was so
No.
cool.
Well, they didn't have anything to compare to. Like I said, I remember doing that, and I could literally go and brew a cup of coffee and come back, and it was still trying to dial up and get to the internet. And now you're right. Any little glitch, if my movie buffers, anything, that email that somebody said they literally just sent me, it's not here. It's not here. Let me refresh. So we have gotten quite impatient, but kudos to those early pioneers because that took some ingenuity and creativity to do it. But if you want it bad enough, you figure out a way to make it happen. Well,
Yeah.
Kayla, for you, what was your life like before you adopted this lifestyle? And I'm wondering, did you just, you said in 2016 you were thinking about it. Were you just like, okay, that's it, I'm doing it? Or was it gradual? Did you do some test runs? How did that go?
The realization that I wanted to leave, quote, normal life, which is not bad, by the way. Whenever I say that, normal life is a wonderful thing and it's not negative at all. But obviously living out of a backpack and drifting around the world is not, normal. So that's how it compares to life at home. So
Gotcha.
I was kind of rejecting, I was feeling like normal life it wasn't really aligning with what I wanted out of my life. And I was 23 at the time. And my final year of college, one of my mom's sisters died. And I will never forget, she was always counting down to retirement. She would tell you would ask her, how are you today, Aunt Jane? And she would say, I have 412 days to retirement. She always knew what the number was. And I thought maybe that's just what happens whenever you get to your 60s and you're ready to be done with the job you don't like. But then I entered the workforce and I found that people around me who were also in their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, a lot of people were counting down. They waited all day for 5 p.m. and all week for the weekend. And after a few months, I thought, I can't live like this. I'm afraid I'm going to become like this if I stay. So that realization was gradual. But then once I realized that's it, I want to go traveling, I spent about 6 months preparing because I had an apartment lease and I couldn't just leave that day. So I gradually started getting rid of my things and, buying the travel gear I needed and researching a lot and talking to people. I would go out for coffee with someone. Oh, my sister went backpacking for a year. And I would say, oh, can I buy her a cup of coffee? And I would go meet up with strangers and just ask them, what was your experience? What do you recommend?
Smart.
And then that I was kind of launched into it because I moved out of my apartment. And then one day I had an apartment and the next day I had nowhere to live permanently. I stayed with family and friends. I'm not pretending I was homeless or anything like that.
Right.
But then
I was getting ready to say this was before Airbnb and being able to rent somebody's space. So I was curious if you were doing hotels, but so you had some support too from your family and people. Cool.
I had a lot of support, and Airbnb actually was around at the time, but I was staying in a lot of hostels just to be around other people. I didn't want to be on my own. And that's instantaneous in the sense that the day your apartment leases up and you drive away, that's it. All you have are those backpacks.
It's done. No looking back. No looking back. Do you have the same backpacks that you had in 2017?
Oh, that's a funny question. I have some of the same stuff, but quite a bit has needed to be replaced because it's been through a lot. It's a lot of things. The traveling really beats your stuff up. Or
yes,
you lose things, because you're always moving. But my husband still has his original backpack that he has been using for a long time. It needs replaced.
Pretty
he won't
sweet.
give it up.
Yeah, hang on to it. That's a treasure. That's something you'll talk about for years to come. Put it in a little glass case. You might have a museum of digital nomadism because I was thinking movie as you were talking to those early pioneers or a documentary. So who knows where it will go.
Oh, I love that.
Were you married when you started this? Because at first you sounded like you were speaking singular.
I was single. I was very detached in that way. I didn't have a cat or a houseplant to my name. I was very majorly in drifting mode. So I set off and I was a solo single traveler. And then I met my husband in Guatemala and we traveled together for about 5 months. And then at the end of that trip, I came back with him to the Netherlands where he was from. And then we used the Netherlands as our home base and kept an apartment there. So we weren't fully nomadic for a while, years. And then we used that as a base to travel around Europe. And I got to know his culture. And now we're fully nomadic again. We moved out of our apartment and got rid of all of our stuff again in about 8 months ago.
You know what? I cannot get a guy to go to the museum or a play with me. How in the world did you meet somebody in Guatemala and get him to just go off into the world with you? You just kindred spirits? Was he a traveler already, or something he dreamed of doing?
He was all.
This is off the subject, but I just need to know for the relationship part, what voodoo did you do? Because that's pretty cool.
He was already traveling. That was the magic. You've got to go. You have to find them out there instead of taking somebody with you. I think that's the secret. But not everyone likes to travel with their partner. It's actually quite funny. We kind of have a hobby because we're in countries most of the time where English is not the language that people speak. So whenever we do hear English, we'll be like walking around and we'll hear people fighting. Like couples fighting in English, and we just follow them for a while.
Your head snaps.
We're like, oh, he did not just say that to her, and she's yelling at him, and it's always like it's quite funny. I mean, travel's very stressful for some couples, so I understand that, but it's quite funny to see in the wild, like people screaming at each other.
I like that. That is funny. That is funny. And I understand that when I'm overseas, I speak a little bit of Spanish and so forth. But if I'm in Germany or, Switzerland or anywhere else, and I just hear even a word of English or even a British accent, someone, it just really, it brings back memories of home. And I want to connect with these strangers because we share that language. So, well, I'm wondering, you've been doing this a while now successfully to the point that you can write and teach about it. But I kind of, I'm wondering if it lives up to the hype. And I'll give you what my thought was when we first started talking was you don't see your family very often. You're living in places where people, we got Google Translate, but still you don't speak the language. So there's got to be communication challenges here and there. Is it what you thought it would be?
You asked if it lives up to the hype, and I think that the answer is that it's even better than the hype.
Oh,
but it's kind of like looking at a picture of Mount Everest and wondering, like, wow, is it really that beautiful at the top? And the answer from someone who's climbed Mount Everest, they'd probably say it's a million times better in real life. But then if you only picture the top of the mountain and you don't picture the climb and the cold, your expectations aren't set. So my expectations whenever I started traveling were not set correctly. I was in ways disappointed because initially I thought it's like so high. You're like, this is amazing. I can't believe I'm here. It's a Tuesday afternoon and I'm swimming in the Caribbean. Like, I can't believe that I could have just missed out on this. But then there's all this other stuff that you don't expect. And it really kind of clobbers you like a wave that you don't see coming. Like Google Translate with a doctor, like you go to the doctor for something and you can't communicate, without technology, or you're feeling like, oh, my husband and I got really bad food poisoning a few months ago. And man, the food you want whenever you're sick comes from such a deep place. Like, and then not being able to get the food that you want, and being so sick and feeling so weak and thinking all I want is, and then someone's like, instead have like pickled goose feet. You think, I don't want to eat that.
Ever.
I want
sick or not.
normal. It feels so repulsive to be given food that you don't like whenever you're sick. It's just funny. And, you can never really be prepared for those things. But what I try to prepare people for is you're not on vacation. You're just working and living somewhere else temporarily. If you're picturing yourself on vacation and you're not imagining yourself working, or like, your shoe breaks or you need your pants rip and you need to get your pants mended, or you lose your credit card. If you're not picturing all that stuff, because that's life and life will always come with you. You can't escape normal life stuff.
Right.
And that's something I try to help people set that expectation. The highs are so great, but you've got to remember all the lows and all that in between of like mundane life that's just going to happen somewhere different.
Well, and that's pretty much like relationships as well. Whether you're getting ready to have your first child or getting ready to get married, so many people have this idealistic view of how it's going to be. And then it's real people with real thoughts and real attitudes and real body odors. It's real. I love that analogy you gave. You touched on healthcare, and I don't know if you're aware, but I have a rare form of cancer. So I have to see my oncologist pretty regularly, about every 3 months, and medications and so forth. So, and a lot of people my age and younger have chronic health conditions, whether it's asthma or whatever. How does that work? Does that rule us out from this lifestyle if we, need regular care and we're jumping around? How does that work?
It doesn't rule you out. So some of the options, if you need to get medicine that let's say you can only get it, quote, at home. So like in your home country, you can remain a digital nomad in your own country. You could still have access to all your prescriptions, and your health insurance would be the same. And you might be able to come back for doctor's appointments or see a doctor somewhere else if your doctor can kind of hook you up with an oncologist in the area that you're going.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
And then if you have more minor health, or kind of, I don't know if minor is the right word, but if you have health concerns that don't require you to go to the doctor as often, you can work on the lifestyle aspects as much as possible. And I know that is not a solution for everyone. But that is something that I've seen people do, and I've experienced myself working on all of those kind of factors that are in our control that help minimize flares of health problems. Mm-hmm. And then just researching, can you get the medicine that you need in the country that you want to go to? Because a lot of countries, you can just go buy any medicine you want. Okay. Like, you don't need a prescription. Right. It would require research ahead of time. Absolutely.
I know a lot of people here go to Mexico and different islands and stuff and just stock up on medication. I really don't know why we need a prescription for penicillin anymore, but I guess so. And you make a good point about, I kind of had gotten in my head, because I've traveled pretty extensively in the United States, and I kind of had gotten in my head of digital nomad. My idea was overseas, but still, there are so many places here that I haven't seen. The Redwoods, Mount Rushmore. I looked on the map the other day, and there's a whole area over there, Utah and some other states. I'm not good with geography, but I could put a pin everywhere but about 5 states. I'm like, I have never, ever been to any of these states with all my traveling. So, you could just see America. And that might be a worthwhile endeavor for some of us who haven't traveled very far or very often, especially to start.
Absolutely. So, I would even say, if you want to start small, start with visiting a family. Like, do you have a relative or a friend that you think, I wish we got together more often? Like, I tell people, just go stay with your sister for a week, and ask her, hey, can I, stay with you? And I'll work during the day. It's not like you're going to be in people's hair all day because you're still working. Right. But start with a visit to family. You get a taste of that freedom. And I think that it's a lot less about travel and a lot more about the freedom to say, hey, I'd like to go visit my family. Like, I stay with my family a month out of the year. And I could have never done that whenever I lived in Chicago. Right. So because I worked at a corporate job, I couldn't have gotten a month of vacation. And if I did, as much as I love seeing my family, I wouldn't have spent my vacation time visiting them. I would have been traveling. So I actually see my family more. And yes, it's concentrated. I don't see them every weekend or something, but I spend more time with them over the course of a year than I would have before. So you can kind of stretch those freedoms, see what you can find. It doesn't have to be exotic at all.
I like that thought. And you're right. I cannot spend a month with my mom as much as I'd like to. And that quality of time that you must have with a month, because it's not like, we got to do this. We got to wrap these presents. We got to go see everybody else. You've got, time and probably more energy. You're not as exhausted. Yeah. Sometimes it seems like as soon as you get to a place to visit a relative, it's time to pack up and head back. So that's a good point. I'm glad you shared that. So let's talk about downsizing and minimalism, which you clearly are an expert at. At this point, like I said, most of us know we got too much stuff. Reducing that clutter to a couple of carry-ons, not even just a room full of stuff, but a couple of carry-ons sounds impossible. Kayla, where do you start with that?
If decluttering sounds terrible to you, I would say start with Marie Kondo's book, The Life-Changing Magic of Tidying Up. That book helps put your stuff and its impact on you into perspective so well, because I think that maybe there's 2 groups of people whenever it comes to decluttering. There's the group that says, I don't need most of this. Why do I have it? I want to get rid of it. And then there's the group that says, wait, I need everything. And if you feel like you need everything, I would say read Marie Kondo's book. It's it's incredible. And if you feel like, oh, I don't need this stuff today, I would start getting rid of things that make you feel bad. Because there are things in your home right now that have a negative impact on you. There's like a book that you see on the shelf and you think, oh, I should finish reading that. But if you wanted to, you would have finished reading it. So you don't, just get rid of it. You have permission to get rid of it. Those skis in the closet that you got and thought, oh, I'm going to get into skiing this year and you never did. Get rid of them. Get rid of the pants that don't fit or the shoes that you bought and ended up not really liking. Those things are making you feel bad. And I think start there. Get rid of those things. Look around your environment and look for anything that gives you those feelings and get rid of them because your environment has a big impact on you.
You're right. That's good. I've interviewed a couple of people on that topic of decluttering and different ways to purge things. And everybody refers to Marie Kondo's book. She's kind of a pioneer in the contemporary way that we are doing this. But for me, it's not... things that make me feel bad, I don't have any problem getting rid of, whether it's a picture or something somebody gave me and I'm not feeling them anymore or whatever. But my problem is the emotional stuff. That's what's hard for me. If grandma gave me a quilt or, I have the jersey that I pledged in 1981 because of the memories attached to it. How do you... that stuff, that's a little bit harder for me. It does bring me joy, but I don't really need it.
I think that if I had some items like that too, and for me, it helped to give them away to people who kind of had shared memories. Like I had some things from my mom's sister who I mentioned who got hit by the car, my Aunt Jane.
Yes.
And I got rid of her things that I had, offering it to other members of the family, other people who say, oh, Aunt Jane's quilt. I had a quilt from her, actually. Actually, I think I do still, maybe it's at my parents' house. Where is it? But giving things away that people who can appreciate them. And then if you are ready to take, let's say you feel like, you know what, you need help getting rid of, it's okay. Like I needed help getting rid of my stuff as well. I didn't feel like I can just like toss it out like, oh, it's all garbage. I thought, but it's nice stuff. I have all these memories. It was hard for me to get rid of a lot of it. And what helped me was having a pickup service come and from a nonprofit, and they just took everything. So I literally took everything because I had some things in storage.
So they came to your house and took your stuff?
Yeah, and they you like put it out at the curb, and that way you don't have to be the hands. That's oh, the box, oh, that thing. And then you think about it and, oh, I don't know, let's take that box instead.
Right, but it's
for
gone.
me. Yeah, because I need to say, in case so I don't come across as misrepresent myself. Whenever I first moved out in 2017, I downsized to a couple backpacks, but I kept some things in storage and I did not use any of it. It was in my parents' house in their basement. I didn't use any of it for 5 years. It just sat there, ruining, like clothes are out of style, batteries, exploded and destroyed things. So by the time I was I went back in there and I thought, what was I thinking keeping this? If I didn't need it for a year, why did I keep it? It was in storage for 2 years. It still stayed there. I just kept, I don't know. It was just sitting there doing nothing. And I finally had a pickup service come and just take all of it. Gotcha. And that was very liberating. And I felt a little bit embarrassed that I couldn't force myself to do that initially. And I might not have even been able to force myself to do it because it's the idea of, oh, those precious memories and having to really separate your memories from the physical things. And I felt so much lighter having all that stuff gone, seeing that truck drive away with all those things and thinking, finally.
And that someone can use them.
You're doing something good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
When you said a pickup service and they just took the things away, I was thinking these people just come in your house and get stuff. Like, you're not reading these books we're taking them. Say, people do that?
I actually did that a little bit whenever I was moving out of the Netherlands. 8 months ago, people would come for the couch and I'm like, would you like to browse my closet? Would you like to look in the cabinets? And everyone was too uncomfortable. They're like, no, I couldn't. And I'm like,
in the U.S., you wouldn't have had a problem. In the U.S., they would have been all over your house taking. Oh, yeah. They would have been opening drawers and stuff. We have no woman problem. Finally
did. I was so relieved. She was like, do you mean it? And I said, yes. And she said, well, then I'm going to do it. And she literally went through the whole apartment. She left with Oh, like it's like all the half full spices. You know, you can't give those to a thrift store, but it's a shame that they go in the garbage.
Right.
So yeah, that was pretty funny watching her walk out with like a shampoo bottle half full of shampoo. I'm so grateful because she used it. Like it's such a shame when things are
Yes.
just sitting around.
And that's the other thing, that the waste causes me guilt as well. You know,
Oh
you were saying
yeah.
some negative things, but just throwing stuff away that's going to expire or that's worn out
Mm,
just from sitting because the batteries went bad
yeah.
or whatever. And then I'm like, oh my God, I'm so bad. I'm going to hell.
Oh.
Yeah, I have those days. My pity parties, monthly. Anderson party of one, bottle service. So this is so much fun. I hate to come to a close, but we are not leaving without talking about your book. You have written a book about all this, and I'm sure people can tell from what you've shared that you really are able to talk about it with clarity and to give practical tips about how to live this lifestyle and how to do it and save money as well. And save your mind, probably your mindset. I think a lot of people are so caught up in their material stuff that it's hindering them mentally. But how to be a digital nomad. This is evergreen. So as of this conversation, it will be out next month. And it's already pre-selling on Amazon. I saw it was number 1 in its category, which is freaking amazing. I love that. But tell us a little bit, give us a summary of the book, what readers can expect to learn, and where it'll be available.
There are a lot of books that will tell you, I did this and here's how you can do it too. And I didn't want that to be this book. For me, it was much less about my own experience, but about the movement and all of the people who have done this before and where these roads have taken them in life and where they can take you. So the book is a practical guide, and it doesn't tell you what to do. Like, hey, get this type of job, go here, get rid of all your stuff. It tells you, hey, there are 4 options of what to do with your stuff.
Mhm.
4. So here's what those consequences are, and what's the benefit of each one, and what's right for you, and what type of work should you get. Here are the 2 types. Think about what, these are the considerations. It's helping you make decisions and feel confident, because you're going to have to make a lot of decisions along the way of traveling.
Mhm.
Like if you go abroad and you walk into a grocery store, you are already not prepared to make so many. You're like, what's the butter? Is this lard? Is it? I don't know what this is. Like
I
all the
can see that.
decisions you have to make, and it's really overwhelming. And the planning part, it shouldn't have to be. So just making like an app, like a complete roadmap, helping you decide what's right for you and helping give a little bit of inspiration as well. It's achievable for many, many people. It's a much more achievable lifestyle than they think it is. So there's a lot of encouragement in there as well.
And I think probably a lot less stressful too, because trying to pay for and maintain all this stuff we don't need is really causing a lot of aggravation and a lot of arguments. So this is something to consider, folks, even if it's just part of the year, or like Kayla said, doing it in the US. But let's just get out and be more active and see more of the world and spend our time on relationships and adventures, and a little less time sitting on the couch being a potato with that laptop on your lap. This has been fantastic. Tell folks how to connect with you online and learn more about you and your book.
I live online at writingfromnowhere.com. That's my website. And if anyone wants to read my book, it's available on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, and maybe some local local bookstores as well online. So I would encourage everyone to check local first if you're interested in buying. And anyone who wants to reach out could send me an email at Kayla@writingfromnowhere.com. I welcome emails and questions from everyone listening.
And we'll include all of that information in the show notes. This has been just a wonderful, really fun interview. Thank you for making yourself available and being so willing to freely share, Kayla.
Oh, it was so much fun. Thanks for having me.
And thank you, listeners, for your time. Please remember to like, subscribe, and share. And I also invite you to visit my website at drmoanderson.com to learn more about my services as a speaker coach, and my books and motivational videos. Until next week, be well, be safe, and happy travels.